Hey, it's Sam, and I'm here on a Saturday night talking about Mercury, Venus, and Rahu in Taurus for all 12 signs, including yours. We're going to be touching on themes of creativity, community, contribution, and for all 12 signs. So check this out. Okay, so as you see, I have the chart up here for Mercury, Venus, and Rahu. It's actually happening May 4th through May 29th here in 2021. That's right, 2021. And I'm going to be talking about this transit. As you can see, it says curiosity, happiness, creativity, connection, in service of our comfort and pleasure. Woohoo! And expanding tribe. Are you up for it? A good time to grow a business or a family or a public cause. So there you go. There's the sort of buzzwords there. That can be really powerful here. We have Venus is in its own sign. So it's the ruler of Rahu and Mercury. And yes, you see here by the time we reach this part about May 20th, the sun is also there. But I'm talking mainly here right now about the transit of the Sun, Mercury, Venus there. Again, the sun is going to come a little later, about 10 days later, and there'll be an eclipse and other things. I'll touch on that. But, I mainly want to be focusing here on the influence of having, especially because Rahu is there, which is the eclipse point. We're going to be having an eclipse during this transit. And it's the reason it's quite important as well is because we have the ruler Venus there in the house. Anytime the ruler is there, then it's going to be, a very ripe transit. Anytime the ruler goes through its own house, through its own sign, it's a time of really developing that energy because the planets, they sort of legislate and govern different areas of the zodiac. The zodiac is called the Kalapurusha, or the limbs of the divine being. It shows the limbs of the Kalapurusha. That's what the zodiac signs are. So when the ruler goes there, it's like the thing that rules that area gets fortified, right? And so having Venus in Taurus, and Venus will be the one that moves on May 4th. Mercury is actually in Taurus now as I'm recording this on May 1st. Mercury has just gone into Taurus. I was actually going to do this just about Mercury and Taurus, but I said, let me do it about Mercury and Venus because they're both there. But so this really invigorates the whole transit and turns it into something very interesting. And I am going to talk about this for all 12 signs from the Ascendant as well. And it's all 12 signs from the Ascendant. Ascendant. People are going to say, is that the moon or the ascendant? It's the ascendant. Now, I do also just want to let people know that this is also, there's something else that you could get access to, and that's the class on the lunar nodes. I did this free class. I just put the link in the comments. I did this web class last year because you see this is a transit, this nodes in Taurus and Scorpio that's happening from September 19, 2020 through till next year, to next March. So Rahu and Ketu are in this axis right now, and it's going to continue, and they're going to continue to be there through next year. Through this year. So you should know this, right? And if you haven't gotten this free web class yet, you should understand what it means to you as if you're a Sagittarius, then this is Rahu in your 6th house, Ketu in your 12th house. If you're Leo, this is Rahu in your 10th house, Ketu in your 4th house. If you're Pisces, it's Rahu in your 3rd house, Ketu in your 9th house. It's different for each ascendant, right? And so again, what I do is I go about and talk about that for all 12 signs so that you can know. Then I also talk about the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio historically. One of the things, for example, the last time they were in this axis was about 19 years ago. This was right after we had the 9/11 and we started to see some of the cultural changes come about. Like, for example, the establishment of the Homeland Security happened at that time, and other forms of control to keep us safe, all these issues around like safety and all that. Again, these are all themes, and I talked about these cultural themes as well on that web class. Again, this is free. You don't have to pay for it. This is you should know that, teachers like me I'm very happy that I can give this kind of value to people, but this is stuff that people would have to pay a lot of money for years ago. You couldn't just do a video and send it out there. You had to put it on a tape and send it and all kinds of stuff. So it's a great blessing to be able to get these high quality teachings really for free. So again, the nodes, and I also talk about as the nodes go through these different nakshatras, because it's different when Rahu is going through Mrigashira and then Rohini and then Kritika. Right now it's in Rohini. Or Ketu starts in Jeshta, then it goes into Anuradha, then ends in Vishaka. So I talk about all of those shifts. I also talk about the eclipses and also some remedies, because this is important. The nodes are stressful in that regard, and knowing how to understand and work with that, it's especially important now because we're in the time of this eclipse, and the nodes are going to get a hold of the sun here, and so these themes are really important now. And again, so all you do is you go to that it's nodes in Taurus and Scorpio.com. You click yes, reserve. You can either watch an instant replay or you can watch the upcoming web class over the next few days. It's a recording, but it was done live. It's like a live class, but it's archived. So take me up on that offer. So again, just to get back to this, we have the as you see, Rahu, when Rahu gets a hold of the sun, then Rahu becomes very powerful. So this is the way to understand the nodes, is they live to eclipse the sun. That's when they get powerful. Rahu gets powerful when the sun joins him, because now he's like, aha, I got the power. I got the power, right? What was that, Marky Mark or something? Mark Wahlberg. And even that song, it's getting kind of hectic. It's getting kind of hectic. Could have been written about Rahu, right? When you say I got the power. The real power is the sun. It's getting kind of hectic is the counterfeit version of power that Rahu kind of wields. And this is what Rahu does. He's kind of like the counterfeit version of the power, like the shadow side of power, if we're not careful, right? So Rahu brings a lot of power to something, but it's kind of the dark side of power. It's the lustful power, like, So any planets that join Rahu winds up bringing that, potentially counterfeit version of power. Now, again, you have to look at the rulers to, distinguish this, how to delineate this, because, what you do is you wind up, looking to see, because Venus is, as I just said, it's powerful there in Taurus, because it's the ruler. So the thing that Rahu is trying to really expand, and where Rahu is trying to get the power now, which is in that Taurus area of life, all the things that have to do with, what I wrote here, which says, I put curiosity, happiness, creativity, connection. That's all the Venus Mercury stuff. And then I put in service of our comfort and pleasure, which is Taurus. And then I said expanding tribe, because that's really how Rahu is going to kind of synthesize this thing, right? So just so you can see how I synthesize this in that sentence, right? And then I said a good time to grow a business, a family, or a public cause. Again, because Rahu is very business, goal-oriented. Taurus, it makes us quite material and very focused on that. And again, but it's also focused on material comforts, even happiness and pleasure with our family. Taurus is very family-oriented, very much about our values, but also like a public cause, because Rahu is very much about the future. It's about expanding things. And again, if you're someone like myself who doesn't, like I didn't get married and have kids and all like that, a lot of my family or my whatever revolves around things like public causes like this. And again, so Mercury and Venus are all too happy to expand that. And again, part of the quality of Rahu's expansiveness is that it takes things like ideas, which is Mercury, and expands them beyond just my personal ideas. My personal ideas might be interesting to me, but, and interesting to people that I know, but it really becomes interesting when I can share it with large groups of people. And it's not just about what I think or my views or whatever. That's when it becomes really rewarding, when we can communicate, even not just with the people in our immediate environment, but when these ideas that we have that feel so good to us that we want to share, which is Mercury, can go to a kind of meta level, like the next level, where it becomes something more cultural. And this is what Rahu winds up doing, right? By the way, this is why Rahu does really well in Gemini as well, because, again, Rahu really wants to expand on ideas. It's quite intellectual, and it's about ideas. So any interaction between Rahu and Mercury really helps to land Rahu or put Rahu in a place that is, sort of conducive with a higher goal and a higher cause that Rahu is, going to support. Now, again, you want the dignity of the planets to be well, and that's what we have here. Because, again, Venus is also does well with Rahu, because Venus is like the teacher of the Asuras, the teacher of the, you might say, the demons, or that kind of lustful quality. Rahu just wants to enjoy life and find happiness and pleasure in things. And again, that's why it has its exaltation place in Taurus, and Venus is the ruler. So again, one of the things, though, that happens when you get Venus in Taurus with Rahu is it's going to expand our pleasure seeking and our desires, of course, but it's also going to, again, turn them into something that can be more universal and more transcendent, rather than just being about our own personal desires. It's the desire to expand our pleasure and extend what we find happiness in to something that's just beyond our personal pleasure. Again, Venus operates through the body as a form of pleasure. Like I can experience Venus just for myself if I want to, eat a candy bar, like if that's something that I would find pleasurable. I don't need anybody else to do anything. I don't need anything. I could just do it for myself. But that's a very low vibration of the Venus possibility. If I want to extend it and expand it more, then I'm going to try to connect what I find pleasurable with another person and share it. And then that becomes something that's more about happiness. It's more of an emotion, not a sensual experience, into something that's happiness, right? Like with another person. But then if I want to expand it even beyond that, then it's not just my personal happiness with another person or whatever, but now it becomes something that's very, again, transcendent. And it becomes something that's much more blissful and more, again, universal, where I just enjoy being in the company of the joyful experience that I'm, a part of, like in a community or a family. And again, a family is one experience of it. It's kind of in between a family and a community, because a community is something that's a higher level. Much of the stuff with the family is sort of biologically wired, and it's, it's not the same as creating something through our ideas and through our intention, like a community, like a spiritual community, or, like with my astrology school and all the students and myself, and we all, we have like a family, we really, we really have a lot of caring and love for each other. We want to see each other do well, and we get together, whether it's online or in person, and there's not any kind of weird politics, or we're not kind of backhand insulting each other. We're just supportive, right? It just feels good to create a high vibe together, right? That's sort of like the culmination of that high Venus energy, because there's a higher cause behind it, right? It's not about all us individuals. We have our place, and then there's a universal, purpose to it all. So these are all really high level Mercury and Venus ideas. Venus in the joy of being around others in a higher level, but Mercury also in the joy of, the fun and the enjoyment we get, speaking about it, communicating about it, and just the fun, quality of being around other people and enjoying ourselves, laughing and, all that. So a lot of potential. And again, of course, Taurus is a very stable sign. It's where we want things to be stable and solid. and again, where we want to set up a structure and where we can set and relax in that structure. It's interesting because, I use the example, I just used a little bit of an example of like with my, like through my astrology school, for example, and with certain communities that I've created. Here's an example. This is one of my websites on my member site, actually. It's an example of all of us kind of, these are some pictures of us, you see, sort of hanging out there. They're all students. You see everybody's just joyful and happy, all big smiles. Everybody's happy to be around each other, right? There's no like weird, thing. And, what I wanted to, the reason I share that is because it's like that's a container. It's like a stable, solid structure. And this is the higher quality of Taurus, actually. The higher quality of Taurus isn't necessarily, food or family or that. There's also it's a mentality. It's a stable mentality, right? It's a stable like structure of something. For example, anything that you create, I'm talking about my school a little bit here, but that's a stable structure where people come in and it's like there to support them. It's like a supportive structure of something. So anything that you build that's a support system for something. Again, the reason it also has to do with Taurus is it's based on your values, and there's a value to it. The reason people, like in those pictures we're smiling is because, they're around people that share the same values. They all connect on these common values that are inspiring and uplifting, and they're relaxed and settled and peaceful and calm and feeling the joy and bliss within that. So again, it's like a family, but a family that you chose, not just one that you're kind of in by default. Again, this is very important to understand, because even families, we can say, oh, my family, and we have a lot of romance about our family. Most people, half of the people in their family, they don't really get along with them very well, but you're kind of linked to them through biology, and you feel like you have some obligation. Again, it's a very deep karmic entanglement. It's not so easy to get away from that because there's a lot of charge around it. But really what a family is eventually, and again, this is an evolution of the Taurus principle, an evolution of the second house principle, is the family that you create. And again, I don't just mean biological. I don't just mean you have a baby that pops out of you and you raise it. Okay, that's one level. That's the simplest level, okay? I'm talking about the family you create through your values. Again, like many people didn't have kids, didn't want kids, didn't have the family like that. The tribe and the family that they've created was based on their values of things like this, like of interest and those kinds of things. That becomes, in some ways, I think, even a more important family than the biological family that you were raised in or that you created later, because it's totally of choice. It's not just biological. It's not just hardwired. And again, this is why when we get around those kinds of families and in that kind of unit, there's a joy about that is actually transcendent of even our birth family or, again, the other family. So I want you to think about that. And again, I'm personally, just on a personal level, feel really blessed to have, through my work, through my school and the teachings and all like that, to have really created like a tribe. This is what I mean by a tribe. And a group that, again, we come together around values. There's like an ethical value equation, not just that we get something out of it, which is like, oh, we get to learn astrology, but there's also values of respecting each other and having fun and irreverence and higher consciousness and all of these high leverage values that pull us together and unite us through those things. So again, when you're in that kind of tribe, and you've really kind of found a tribe, it's a whole other level of your growth. Whether you create it or you're a part of it, this is where you can really find find a deeper sense of meaning. Again, with myself, also the sort of tribe that I'm involved with, like with my spiritual teachings, my spiritual teachers, like my guru Amma, there's a whole Amma family. We use the word, Jyotish family, Amma family, there was a yoga family. And so I really consider those families to be the real family, honestly. Just like, again, we're born into a family that sort of teaches us certain things, but it's the teachings that we come to on our own that we create of our own, what's called swadharma, our own unique identity, evolving. Those teachings and those teachers, those gurus, those are the ones that really connect us with something, again, that's transcendent. I keep using that term. And I mean transcendent because it transcends all of the mental chatter and all of the attachments and the problems of this world that we wind up focusing way too much on a lot of the time. So I'm talking about this a lot because I want you to see the connections between Venus and the beauty and joy of connecting with people on a higher level, beyond our personal pleasure, beyond our personal happiness, but something beyond, right? Think of those people that are involved in those families and those tribes that you've created and what those people represent in your life. And again, Mercury is just the joy of interacting with them, of talking about things on this very high level, of experiencing and finding your values and finding your voice. Because Mercury is like that voice in your head within that high structure, that high container of values. And again, and see Taurus as being like the structure behind it. And Rahu is expanding these things. Now, again, like I said, Rahu can expand our desires, and he will. Rahu will do all of it. He's going to expand Mercury, which is all those ideas. But again, you have to realize they're in Taurus. So the ideas and the desires are going to be, like it says in the graphic, in service of our comfort, pleasure, and expanding tribe. So this is the real potential. And by the way, you can see a lot of polarizing right now because we're very tribal right now. Watch and see in the next couple months as Venus Mercury goes through Taurus and Rahu is there exciting it. We're going to see a lot more tribalism coming out again. Again, we all want to feel connected, but you're going to see people get more, especially the Rahu Mercury is going to start maybe bringing out more contentiousness and more tribalism, just said very simply. Again, around social issues like vaccines and all, we still see so much of this going on. People just, so divided around issues like this. We see some real horrible tragedies happening in the world, like in India, especially with India kind of took its eye off the ball with COVID. This is not a hoax. You think it's a hoax, go to India, right? This is it was densely packed people. They started doing things like the Kumbh Mela, and the prime minister, they started doing large political rallies again. And it's just a horrific situation, right? And so this is awful. And let's hope that this transit brings some healing. Again, we have an eclipse coming up, which, again, this Rahu and Ketu are related to these kinds of pandemics and mass movements and whatnot. So on a mundane level, there's some potential for difficulty, but again, having Venus there and Mercury there as well can show that we may get some surprising grace and healing, very quickly, hopefully maybe quicker than we think. Right now, it looks like it could be very dire in India. We're not sure where it's going to go, but maybe, and I would expect that, especially by early May, once Venus moves into Taurus, because there's very good dignity here, that it could perhaps turn things around much more quickly than we think right now. That's my prayer, and we should all pray and do our best to help. But, this has been a bit of a wake-up call for a lot to say, wow, okay, we're all kind of taking our eyes off the ball here, and we can see what can happen if we do. So again, we can see the potential for these mass movements. Like I said, Rahu shows things on a mass scale. But it can show this sort of tribalism where people are getting into that kind of tribal way again, with the influence. And of course, because we have an eclipse coming, the sun is going to be there, in early June. I believe it's June 10th is the exact day of the eclipse. So there's a lot of potential here, especially for those who are, teachers, students, people that are following me here. We're involved in astrology and learning and wisdom and healing and taking care, hopefully, of each other and wanting to, leave the world better than we found it, wanting to, grow in intelligence and wisdom and teaching. Again, there's a lot of drive and passion toward, especially the Venus-Mercury higher vibration, which is greater happiness and joy and greater intelligence and discrimination and creativity amongst those two things, because even Mercury and Venus joining in a sign where they're beneficial is good. And we have a couple months of this because Mercury is going to be, they're in Taurus and Gemini. Every year when Venus and Mercury go through Taurus and Gemini, it's probably the best time of the year for those two planets because they're very good friends with each of them. They're friendly with each other and they're ruling both of these. So for a couple months, we're going to have Venus and Taurus, and then it goes into Gemini. Mercury is going to be with it or exchanging with it with her the whole time, just like the whole time Mercury's going through Taurus, at least this first part, Venus is there. Mercury goes retrograde back into Taurus and then goes through again. But again, a couple months of both Venus and Mercury, both in good dignity, in signs of their friends. It's also good in the Libra Virgo, but Venus is a little more ambiguous because there's a debilitation there and whatnot. So this up here is one of the best and most conducive places. I would say probably almost certainly the best couple months is when Venus and Mercury go through Taurus and Gemini. And again, that's great for each other. These are the two Rajasic planets where we want to connect with each other. We want to consider each other's ideas. We want to be tolerant and open-minded and listen to each other, which is Mercury. Again, Mercury's about to go retrograde, which means we reflect and we listen more. And he'll be retrograde at the beginning of Gemini, but then he goes back into Taurus for most of his retrograde cycle. Again, that's very good for listening and being patient. I see this as quite a good transit, but of course, Rahu is going to bring those wild cards in. He's going to expand our desires first, personal desires. But instead of just getting drawn into that part of it, really look at the tribe and look at what you want to create and look at what you want to be in support of and what tribes are supporting you. Where is the tribe and the group that you've created or that you're a part of that needs you and that you can be of support to? And that is supporting you. And are you appreciating that? Are you nurturing that as well? And what's your role in it? Can you do more, even more on individual level, participate more, and those kinds of things. So these are all great opportunities from May 4th until May 29th. So I see there's a few questions here, and I see some things about do I do readings, and someone else said I do good readings and what. So all that's nice to see. It's a little bit much to offer a lot right now. I want to just stay on this, but I appreciate the conversations there. But so again, if people did, I did want to back up here. Whoops, I did want to back up here and then show, and then I'll talk about each of the 12 signs. But, again, if people just join me, I do want to make sure that you know that you can get the web class that I did last year on this transit of the nodes through Taurus and Scorpio. Again, it's a very important transit. It's going to keep going into next year. We've already been greatly affected by it. It started right before we had the U.S. election. One of the main reasons I predicted correctly, and in fact very correctly, about the U.S. election, one of the main metrics I looked at was that the nodes were moving into Taurus. That was one of the metrics, and I also looked at how that affected the two candidates. But just the idea that we were going to be looking for more stability, and whichever candidate represented the most stability, that was going to be a big factor. So again, and explaining these things with a lot of nuance, that's what I do on this web class. It's more than an hour. It's great research. It's a great manual where I go through each of the 12 signs. So again, whatever your rising sign is, I talk about that and this shift for the next year and a half. You know, we're so bombarded by information. We're like, oh, okay, now the next thing. This is something, again, that's going to be in a major dominant way, you know, dominating your life on some level for the next until next year. You might not be noticing it, but it doesn't mean it ain't happening. You know, if you're a Scorpio person, you got K2 in your first house and Rahu in the 7th right now. You might think about and look at all this other stuff, but that is working you. Okay, if you're Leo, Rahu is going through your 10th house. I don't care if you got any planets there or not. If you do, it's even more. But these are the things that really drive us for like a year and a half cycle, right? If you're, you know, Aquarius, Rahu is going through your 4th house. It's upsetting where you live, where you might be moving all around or not sure where you're living or up in, again, this is real stuff, okay? And you know, it happens, and again, whether we know it or not. So this is a free thing to just explain all that. And then I also go through micro facets of the transit, right? I talk about it historically. Like I said earlier, the last time it happened, we established the Department of Homeland Security and all those things about wanting to be safe and secure and stable can also get a little turned around. You know, we might want to be so stable that we, you know, set up a whole bureaucracy to protect us from the boogeyman. We're looking at those kinds of things right now with maybe vaccine, you know, ID cards or other kinds of things. I mean, how safe do we want to be, right? Again, I talked about this last year. I said, watch, we're going to start seeing these things. We're seeing them, and we're right in the middle of it all, right? So again, I said this last year. It's not because I'm a genius. It's because I do research, and I know what the energy means. So I talked about all that. Again, I also talk about nodes in Taurus and Scorpio nakshatras. Again, because it's moving through the different nakshatras. Each time it shifts, it brings something different. You know, Ketu, for example, not that long ago, just went, now he's in Anuradha nakshatra. He had been in Jyeshta nakshatra the whole time. He just moved into Anuradha nakshatra. That's a whole different quality of Ketu. Rahu has been in Rohini a little longer. Again, and then remedies and different things like that, right? So you can see Ketu now barely in Anuradha. He just poked his head in there. Rahu has been in Rohini for a while because Rohini starts at 10 degrees. So again, all of these things are important. And again, it's free. You just click the link. You can either watch a replay or you can register and set up an appointment in the next couple days to watch it. So again, years ago, I wouldn't have been able to offer this kind of stuff. Now we're very spoiled by all the technology and the opportunities we get. Oh, another free video. We got so many of them. I get it, but it's also, you know, if you like these updates, this is like a master class on how to do it also. If you're an astrology student or an astrologer or whatever, you get to see me, you get to see how I do research. You get to hear how I explain all of these different things, all these different houses. Frankly, I wish that was around when I started learning. Anyway, let me take a quick drink here. All right, so what we have here is we'll talk about each of the 12 signs here. And again, it just is putting focus on where this falls from your ascendant. And of course, it's from your ascendant. I put that even in the title because people ask. They think it might be from the moon and whatnot, but no, it's from the ascendant. Your karmas are unfolding from the ascendant because that's your body, right? So your life is unfolding through those houses from the ascendant. So Taurus is the second house from Aries. So for Aries, and so again, I'm just going to be interpreting this based on the house here from the ascendant because this is where all that focal point is going to be. All right. So again, for Aries people, this is happening in your second house. So again, it's going to be really focused on your values. Again, your family, you could feel this disruption perhaps in your tribe, in the things I talked about. It could be your home tribe, your home family, your birth family. and again, where your values are getting questioned. Values are like, how much do I value this thing? And is it worth compromising my values in order to get along? And just like when you were growing up, you had certain things that were in common with your birth family, but other things they weren't. So again, you can still get along with people, and we're always trying to find those common values, those shared values. I have friends. I grew up in Maryland, in like rural Maryland. I still have friends that we get along still, but we get along around the ways we get along with. Many of them, I don't talk to them about astrology and intellectual stuff like this because that's not what they do. But where we still connect, we get along really well. We can bond around music, we bond around experiences, and we have mutual respect for each other regardless of the parts of the value system that don't intersect. And the highest values are actually just mutual respect for people regardless of what they're doing. Once you get out of some philosophical high ground, then it doesn't matter that they don't care about astrology or they don't care about Indian whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever they're people, right? Whatever, and that's the same with everybody, not just someone I grew up with. I go play tennis all the time. Now, I don't even talk about, none of this ever comes up. I played tennis with a dude today. He's talking about going home and, he's got to go home and throw, the ribeye on the grill for the kids or whatever. I'm not like, oh, you're a pig. You eat meat. I'm not going to say anything. Look, part of being mature, right, is to be, and to be kind with people is you see what their values are and whatever, you find the common ground to get along with. Guy John, he's a great guy. I really love playing with him, playing tennis with him, and we don't even talk about this stuff, right? So again, for Aries, again, this is values, second house values, but the more we get involved with people, like if they're coming into my school or this or that, then it gets a little more contentious because now there's more of a focus. The values get more focused because now it's around a cause and all those things I talked about. So again, it's not like you might not like the person, but they're just not right for the unit, quote, so to speak. So these are big things that are coming up with you, Aries. For Taurus, this is first house stuff. So again, you're really driven by your comfort zone. You're really driven by that tribe that you have around you, that herd of cows, right? Taurus, it's a cow, and the cows like being near the cows they want to be near. I learned this when I went to India and fed Amma's cows. That was my seva for a while. I would have to get up at like 6 a.m. and go shovel the shit in the cow shed, which I didn't really mind because I don't have a good sense of smell. Other people, they really hate the work. I really liked it. I didn't like getting up that early, but it was one of the things I learned about the cows is they're wild and they're out and they're disruptive until you feed them, but they also got to be next to the cow they want to be next to. They have an order. This one goes here, this one goes here, this one goes there. If you don't, they get all upset too. So the cows want to be near the cows and with food. Put them near the cow they want to be with and give them food. They're happy. They'll sit there and eat the food, sit down and chew it and just bliss out. That's it. You can really watch contentment with a cow. That's why the symbol works. You want to learn about this astrological symbols, by the way, ponder if it's an animal or whatever the thing is, ponder it. Because you want to see Aries, it's a ram. Watch a cow. By the way, they had goats there too, not rams, but similar. And they're very different than cows. They're jumping all over the place. They're climbing on things. Look at goats, right? Or like rams or sheep. They're banging into each other. They're running into you. That's Aries. So for you, Taurus, all this planetary energy there is your first house. So it's really a time for you personally, your personal identity to really create your tribe, to really connect with your values, and to be willing to be dynamic in that. Sometimes Taurus can be too stuck in their ways a little bit and crave that stability and just getting the food and being next to the other cow, and that's all that matters, and kind of get blinders on a little bit and not grow. So now is the time to expand. Rahu is going through your first house, and he's saying, look, expand your tribe of cows. It's not just the same cows. There are other cows, greener pastures. Okay, enough of the metaphor. So for Gemini, this is happening in your 12th house, which is about meditation, solitude, introspection, letting go, surrender. Again, Rahu has been going through the 12th. Now you get the Sun, Mercury, and we're going to get an eclipse there. We're going to get Venus, Mercury, and an eclipse there. So it's saying, okay, you need to really bring light into that 12th house, which is that place of surrender, that place of letting go, that place of stillness and peace, right? 12th house. And again, for you, Gemini, it's a very powerful area for you. Venus is the ruler, and it's also the 5th house ruler. So you have you love your, for you, Gemini shows up as like imagination and creativity. It's why you're very creative. Venus rules the 5th and the 12th. So you like to go off in your own imagination and create things, imagine things, right? So it's very fertile in that regard. You want to make sure to not just, sort of tune out and check out and be in your own world a little bit. I've done a little bit of that myself recently. Been a little bit in my own world, kind of. So make sure to still show up, but it's good for the highest and low and the highest qualities of that. But you need to be careful of the escapism or the kind of losing focus. Cancer, this is 11th house, which has to do with the public, with your ambitions, with universalizing your nature and your energy. And again, because that's the 11th house. So having, again, Mercury, Venus, and Rahu there, and then the Sun, is going to bring a lot of focus in that 11th house. So again, remember, Rahu is there the whole time, but then planets join it and it magnifies it. So this area of life has been hanging out since September of last year. That's why, again, I keep talking about this. This area of your life has been an issue since last September. What happens then is planets get near it, particularly the Sun, and we have an eclipse, and it kind of blows up now. Now that thing becomes the main thing for about a month or so, right? So again, for you, Cancer, this is 11th house, which is about your contribution, your higher purpose, and what you're willing to sacrifice for in the public domain, taking what you love to create and sharing it. That's the 11th house. And for Leo, this is your 10th house. So for Leos, this is a big time, again, because you're very career focused and oriented. Now you're going to have, again, Venus, the 10th Lord, Mercury, the planet of communication. Again, the Sun is going to go through there. He's going to get eclipsed. But again, it's all about sharing on a high level, and you as that person who's willing to step up and share and be seen, especially if it's in support of some high purpose. So for you, Leo, again, this whole thing here is very creative, and especially as it relates to your individuality and your swadharma, and taking who you are as an embodiment of the Sun and sharing it in the highest way with the world. So again, you always find a lot of joy and happiness in that because Venus rules your 10th house, and this is no different, especially if it revolves around communication and language and teaching and things like that with all that Mercury energy. Virgo, this is a 9th house transit. Again, this is also really powerful. Your ruling planet Mercury is there in the 9th with Venus, the 9th Lord, right? And Rahu, it's like, bam, this is great for you, Virgo. Again, you see these Venus and Mercury people are really, these earth signs, and also Capricorn, especially because it's right there with those rulerships. So again, for you, Virgo, a great time, especially if you're a teacher, if you think about being a teacher, if you follow great teachers and you want to be a teacher, this is a great time to not only be re-inspired and learn new things, but learn things that then you can apply and inspire others. A great student winds up becoming a great teacher, and great teachers wind up remaining great students. They keep learning. And part of it is they learn from their students, just like parents learn from their children. It's a similar kind of vibe. So this 9th house is deeply empowered right now for you Virgo ascendants. The joy of creating, Mercury also rules the 10th house and your ascendant. Don't waste it. Don't waste it on just, I'm inspired, yay, hippy dippy dance and woo-hoo-hoo, and, put it to work. Do something with it. Because again, Virgo, you're very driven to accomplish things and take things seriously. So do that. Many times we just kind of benefit from the fun thing that's going on, and we don't take advantage of the opportunity and the power that's there. This isn't just an opportunity to like bliss out and enjoy something. It's also to do something, right? One is receiving it, the other is activating it. So Libra, this is happening in your 8th house, which might seem difficult, but your ruling planet Venus also rules the 8th house. So that's certainly part of your nature that's really important. But you might be feeling this more as a time of transformation, being willing to destroy certain connections that don't feel good anymore. Again, because the 8th house comes after the 7th, so you just had 7th house, and things going through the 7th house is a lot of, again, measuring yourself against others, Libra, and now it goes into the 8th house. And again, often it's willing to let go of things and destroy things, or let things be destroyed that need to leave. And you're doing this all the time, Libra, because your ruling planet also rules the 8th house. So you're always transforming and changing your relationships. You don't have to destroy the people. State, again, kind of maybe bringing excitement and shifts. It's not necessarily bad, but it brings some restlessness. Rahu going through the 4th house has been bringing that since September. But now these planets join, and it brings more possibility. Again, it doesn't mean it's even been a bad thing. It's just getting you thinking about that. But you want to also dial in the fact that having a problem with where they want to live, they wind up, some people are saying that it's stuck. Let me see. Let me do a few things. If one person tells me it's stuck, I don't listen. If a couple people do, then I will. All right. So I'm just going to keep going. All right. Anyway, so I was at Aquarius, and so what I was saying was that in the 4th house, you have, it's not just your external home where you live, it's also your heart, which is, your heart, which is how you feel and those deep feelings. They say home is where the heart is and all of that. So this is the deeper lesson, right? It's not just where do I live? Where do I live? Often that's because it's like I can't sit still and I don't know who I am. When we're peaceful, we can live anywhere and feel content. So again, not as a lecture, but just as something to consider. That inner restlessness is often projected into, there's this place where if I move there, then I'll be calm and peaceful. This is a 4th house illusion, okay? But you might be feeling those things. But it's also the 9th house ruler. Venus also rules the 9th house. And so the highest thing for you, Aquarius, is to connect with your teachings, with your teachers, with your inspirations. And not just focus on some external, where do I live, this and that kind of thing, right? But again, besides that part of it, Mercury is also there, which is your 4th house. Which is your 5th house ruler. So again, just a very creative time as well. But again, it's also time to be creative around your home or where you live, or like renovations or other kinds of things. I know a couple Aquarius people who they'll be doing a lot of renovations in the home and things like that. But again, the other renovation is that internal renovation, quote, so to speak. So keep that in mind. And then Pisces, the final one, we have this in your 3rd house. The 3rd house has to do with new interests, exploring new interests, trying new things, and not just being stuck with the old teachings, right? So that 3rd house is going to be very lit up for you. But again, 3rd house can be kind of stimulating, even overstimulating at times. So you want to make sure to, sort of sink into a deeper sort of peaceful quality. Now, Mercury does rule the 4th house and the 7th house. And this is a place, again, of the home and of the heart, 4th house. And 7th house is other people and the partners. So this relationship to other people and to partners and all like that is also really big for you, Pisces. So again, your romantic partners and others can be great solace as well to you. And you could be of service and all of that as well. So again, but the third house is a little more, it's literally the house of ego, but that just means where you're trying to figure things out for yourself. And it can be a little more, stressful, and often in the more desire-filled part. It's why Venus is a functional malefic for Pisces, right? Because it rules the third house of desires, even though it's exalted in the first. And again, this means that those desires for Pisces, it can kind of derail you from your more mystical nature. So again, we got all these planets now in that house of desire, and often that can lead to disappointments and whatnot. But if our interests are, if we can purify and stay grounded, it can also be quite uplifting, particularly if you're studying things and finding new interests. Again, Pisces are also often very mystical, and they're students, and these things are very supported by the third house. So align your mind with things that are good teachings, not just overstimulated stuff, and it can take you to the higher level of that. So this is let me take a drink here. So I see it looks like it got stuck for a second. So, okay, I see it. There's 100 comments there, especially on YouTube. Anyway, so I'm not going to take questions. It's kind of a lot to just go through all this, and I'm just going to let it be there. But again, of course, in all the platforms, it's archived there, so you can go back and watch it again. And again, if you like this, go ahead and subscribe. Get notified if you're not a subscriber. Where is it? Over here. There it is. Like, subscribe, get notified. And again, one more time, let me just actually put it in the comments in case people came late. This nodes in Taurus and Scorpio class, again, this is free. You can learn about where the nodes are right now and how this affects your sign and all of that as well. Whether you know it or not, that's what's going on in your world, and it has been since September of last year. There's been a focus in these areas of life that I talked about today. Notice how in the areas of life that I talked about today, there's been a kind of focus on that. Well, now it's coming into more intensity because not only is the node sitting there, we're moving up to the eclipse, and we also have this sort of pileup of Mercury and Venus there. So anyway, you take care and have a good one.